So, welcome. We are live. Finally, first session of our free creative advertising training series that is a weekly meeting with me where we will go through many of the creative advertising principles in order to really work on the ways how we can improve how we advertise, not only for our companies, but also for the organizations that we work for, or anything that we that is touching advertising will be discussed here, and we will look on ways how to improve it, because unfortunately we are living now in a crisis of creativity. And it's a pity because we have amazing tools to our disposals in terms of AI, in terms of software solutions, hardware, and so on and so on. So we can be creative, but unfortunately, the advertising industry and advertising, the state of advertising is unfortunately not showing the same thing, and that's a pity because we can do better. And as we will learn today, there's a big power lying in creativity and how creativity can be used for the good of the organizations and for the good of individuals. So let's jump into it. This training session will be recorded, so don't worry if you miss it or if you will be um, um, late to it. I will record it and I will share with everyone who's on our list and also on our YouTube channel, so you can just always go back to it and rewatch it and maybe grab some of those fundamentals. So let's jump into it and let's get started. So, the power of creativity in advertising. Why should we really care about creativity, and why should we care if we are creative in advertising? And I think the next slide will show that perfectly. Because as you can see, we are living in the times where everything is the same. Even though, as I said before, we had amazing tools and we can use it for being creative, unfortunately, majority of stuff which we see on the internet and actually everywhere around us is just the same. And it's a pity because we can do better, and as we will learn today, creativity actually can be a difference maker in terms of how our brand is perceived and how and what are some of the results that we can reach via creativity. But like as you can see on this amazing picture, it's just everything is the same. Everything is in the same colors, everything is simplified. And unfortunately, what we are lacking a differentiator which very quickly tells the audience what we stand for and who we really are. So what is the current state of advertising? And unfortunately, this slide is pretty heavy, but I'm not going to go through it. You can read it if you want, but I'm just going to summarize it in those few areas which I see, which I identified. And first of all, as I said, it's the lack of meaningful creativity. And by it, I mean that we are becoming overly rational. Our messages, which we see, are rational. It's all about price. It's all about different, quality aspects or functionalities, but nothing is really speaking to our human spirit and how we can connect via advertising with our audience. And it's a big thing because, as we will learn later in the series, rational advertising only work in certain areas, and in majority of cases, actually being creative and emotional is the way to connect with your audience. Second thing is the failure to reach full potential, and that's a big one because when I consult with many companies, very often I see that they have an amazing idea, but unfortunately the idea cannot reach their audience, or if it reaches their audience, it just goes ignored. And that's the worst part, right? When our advertising is ignored, then we really can't reach the full potential of our idea. And some of those companies which I consult for really have great ideas, but unfortunately they are being lost in noise which surrounds us all. because we are bombarded by thousands of messages across the day, and if something is not distinctive and creative, we will just ignore it. And as I will show you in a slide later on, some of the studies are showing that 80 to 90% of ads don't work and don't deliver any meaningful business results, which is a tragedy if you think about it, right? 80% or 90% of ads don't work. Then the third point, which might be important for some, might not be important for some, but I think it's worth considering, and it's the energy wasted on basically not working and not creative advertising. Because if you think about it, creating and producing ads is using an energy, and not only human energy, but also the resources, which the energy which surrounds us and which needs to be transported to the hardware, and so on and so on. And by doing that, and if we're trying to be thinking about the environment and so on, you know it's something to consider, right? Because a lot of energy is being wasted on something that doesn't work. And if you think that 90% of ads don't work, that's big majority of things that we see is just ignored. And people worked on it, computers were working on it, and computers were calculating and rendering and so on and so on. So that's a big part of how we should really be thinking about energy and creativity. Then the second thing is, the fourth thing is wasted resources, which I mentioned, but this is in the context of wasting advertising money, because when we think about it, any advertising needs support from media, and that media costs money. And if we produce something which is below quality and below the standard, this money which would be spent on media is just lost, and we will never get it back. And that's the tragedy. Then we have the overexposure to bad ads. I mentioned that already before. We are bombarded by thousands of messages every day, and we just becoming numb to them because they are all underperformed. They are under the quality that we would like to experience. And if we think about it, we really would enjoy consuming advertising if it would be good quality, because you probably were in a situation where you were consuming ads because they were really good, and that's everyone were there, and you want to just look at the ad. Of course, it needs to be translated to business objective, but there's a bigger chance of something that is enjoyable to watch to really reach the business objective as well. And then on a personal level, it's just lack of fulfillment and burnout, working on things that just don't work and are irrational, are gray, are the same as everything that we've done before. So anyway, before we jump into it, why I'm talking about advertising and what can I talk about myself in terms of like why I have an opinion on that. So very briefly about me, I'm Jakub Kosmowski. I'm a marketing and sponsoring director for many companies across different sectors and different industries. I've worked for some of the Fortune 500 companies. I managed multi-million euros or dollars budgets, and I was responsible for advertising campaigns, marketing in general, preparing the strategy, and also then communication plans. And I'm in the industry for over 10 years. And we had some award-winning campaigns, and we had some record-breaking results, which just is a good thing to have when I'm talking about advertising. So at least there's some credibility because we've done it. I was in a situation where our ads were not working, and then we were able to improve them. And now you probably saw this trend already with the entire spectrum of possibilities that we now have with AI. You see where humanity and people tend to go, and it's always the same thing. There are trends that people repeat and that people produce the same work, which in the beginning is creative, but then just gets lost in noise of the sameness. Because as you can see, these are two trends which were very, I think, one of them, the toy trend, the doll trend, was the one which was just is actually happening right now. And these are all trends, they come and go, but people somehow jump on them and brands jump on them, and they believe that by doing what everyone does, they will actually be distinctive and they will be creative. And as I said, in the beginning, it is creative because it was a good idea, but then it was overdone and everything was just using the same trends and the same ideas, the same concepts. And you just get lost. And for me, it's amazing to see that, especially now when we have AI to our disposal, that just opens all of the possibilities that we have. We are somehow just going towards the same things as everyone else. And it's just amazing because, on the other hand, we could be using AI for really creative work, for giving us ideas which are just extraordinary. But now, actually, we are going to the same thing. And again, there's nothing wrong with jumping on a trend to get a little bit of publicity. But on the other hand, this will not be groundbreaking because, again, everyone is doing the same thing and everyone's jumping on it. And if you're a brand, or if you're a company and you're too late to a trend, then you're becoming a meme by yourself. So again, I would be very cautious of going into those kind of trends because, again, like, yes, it might give you some views, but in the end, that's not going to be something that will move the needle. And in terms of the power of an ad, if you remember any great ad that was created or that actually captured your attention, there was a creative idea behind it. It was different. It was something that was new, that was groundbreaking, and that was fresh. And unfortunately, we are seeing these things less and less as an audience, and that's a pity because we have a potential of being really creative, but unfortunately, we are just jumping on the same trends and we are going and repeating the same thing. Or on the other hand, we are driven by results only, and that brings us to this over rational advertising and messaging, which again shown by many researchers is just again a way to becoming ineffective. And in the end, creativity should be an improvement of effectiveness in terms of advertising and in terms of business objectives. And there's a famous quote by Bill Bernbach, a great advertising thinker and CEO of a major agency. It may well be that creativity is the last unfair advantage we are legally allowed to take over our competitors. And that was many years ago. He already acknowledged the strength of creativity, and when used properly, that it can really deliver the advantage over our competitors. Because apart from creativity, we all have very similar conditions and we have all the same possibilities. And especially now with AI that enables us to go to an average level in everything that surrounds us, everyone is becoming on the same level, and only creativity will be the thing that will really put us above our competitors. So that's how we should be thinking about it. And if you think about, ads from the past or anything relevant, there were very creative ads. There was Nike Drink Crazy. For some people, the messaging in this campaign was against their thinking and about their ways, but in the end, it delivered the results in for Nike, and it actually it was creative at the time. Then there's Duff, which created beautiful campaigns that were as well creative, that were shattering the stereotypes of the beauty category and beauty category advertising. They were against it. They were creative, and they saw results through it. And then, of course, there's Old Spice with the menu your man could smell like, and that campaign, that series of campaigns, was actually groundbreaking for Old Spice, and they could actually refresh their brand in a way that they saw a big success from advertising, and which translated to business results as well. And these are just examples, right? There are many smaller brands that are creative, and by being creative, they can actually punch up in their weight category because they have less budget for media. They might have less resources, but creativity is something that puts them above some of them, their competitors. And you can do that, right? It's not always of course, in many cases, the bigger player, the bigger brand will win. But the only thing that you might try to be really punching above your weight is to be creative in terms of your messaging, in terms of your positioning, of your product management, and so on and so on. So why creativity matters in terms of on a company level. And as I said before, right? Failure to reach a full potential. Ideas are just ideas, but they need to reach their audience. The audience needs to know about your idea. And if you will inform them about your idea in a very rational and gray way, they will just ignore it. And as I said, 90% of or 80% of us don't work, which is again a tragedy. And if you think about it, if you really have a great idea, if you don't communicate it well, you will never reach your full potential. Then there's erosion of trust in creativity. The more we under deliver our creative ideas, the more we are losing trust in our management or in people who work with us because they don't see results coming from being creative. But of course, that creativity might be not up to the level that I'm talking about, and is something that really we should pay attention to, because being creative, really, there's a certain way of being creative. And of course, it's not about process or framework, because not everyone can be creative, but there are ways how to use creativity for your advantage, as we will learn in the series, which are coming next weeks. There are ways that you can approach your ad in a way that you might make it more effective by using creativity to your advantage. There are some ways that you can do in order to really reach your full potential of your ad and of your communication. And then, as I said, the last thing on the company level are the wasted resources. Not only do we waste human resources, but we also lose money on media, or we lose time. And in the end, the company just gets hit twice or three times, because they could be working on something that will work, but unfortunately they are working on ads or communication that is under delivering on a creative level. Then on a personal level, it just gets even harder, right? Because we are not fulfilled by working on stuff that's not delivering us satisfaction in terms of our creative spirit. Because if you are in advertising, I assume that there is a small part in you, or a bigger part, that wants to be creative, that wants to create creative advertising that actually speaks about something in a way that reaches the audience and is appreciated by the audience, and even on top of that actually delivers business results, because in the end that's what matters, and that's the role of advertising, to bring business to the company that you work for, or for your company. But again, if you're working on something that doesn't work, you will sooner or later you will lose joy and fulfillment from that work. And then second thing is erosion of self-confidence. It's the same thing. If you repeat to do producing stuff that just doesn't deliver work, you will lose your confidence in the choices that you are making, right? And by that you will become less confident in the stuff that you're producing, and by that it will just get worse, because there will be more pressure on you to produce work that delivers. But in the end, you will not know what works because you will never reach the full potential. And then on top of that, of course, is burnout, because that's something that we when we work on something that just doesn't deliver, we are frustrated by our management, we are frustrated by our colleagues, because they know that the work that should be actually delivering results doesn't deliver results, and that just leads to a spiral that we are just becoming more tense and work in our environment, because we just don't see any results that are coming our way, and it might be very, very frustrated for us. And then, of course, the last one is the loss of confidence in decision making, and that's again connected to what we were speaking before. By choices which you make in terms of what goes into your advertising, and when you see that something is working, that there's a traction in your choices, that advertising is working, then you build your confidence. But on the contrary, where you produce over rational advertising that is not delivering any results, you're becoming less and less confident in your decisions that you make, and in the end, this will lead to a situation where, for you, it will be very hard to really stand behind your choices, because you will not be confident in those aspects that will deliver business results. And when we think about creativity the difference maker, this is a great slide from Thinksbox. It is about those multipliers of advertising profitability. And as I mentioned before already, in our talk, brand size matters the most. And that's obvious. When we see our competitors, size of the brand matters more than anything, what we take into account. But creativity is, I would say, on a close second. And as I said before, creativity might be one of the competitive advantage that we have, even on a brand that is bigger than us. Because I've used to work in a lot of companies where, unfortunately, creativity was neglected. And we could then see very, very quickly that competitors, which were smaller, but they were emphasizing their creative spirit, and their advertising was actually creative, we saw that they could actually bite on our market share and take some of our clients away, because they just became more creative than us. And I think that's the big message, which you should take home, is that, again, if you have many things against you in terms of budget, in terms of budget for media, budget for creativity, or even team, the only thing that you might use for your advantage is really creativity, because that's something that will potentially make a difference in terms of how you really work with your competitors. Again, so that was a quick intro to creativity. If you will want to jump on an advertising challenge, which we are starting now, go ahead. I prepared this offer for you now. You can just quickly scan the QR. It's the Creative Advertising Challenge. It's 14 lessons about anything that goes into what makes advertising effective. We will talk about how to use emotions, how to use brand assets, how to use media, how to use, should you use celebrity or not? Should you use anything specific in your, this is what I talked before, right? That there are certain ways that you can use in your advertising that just makes it more effective. And it doesn't matter if it's for a small brand or a big brand. There are ways and certain principles that you should use for all of your advertising to make it as effective as possible, and, as I said, to really reach your full potential. Apart from those 14 lessons, you will get a lot of processes and frameworks and templates, and also there will be 2 live Q&A sessions. All of these frameworks, which we collected across my experience and many years working in advertising and marketing, is well above $1,000, and now we are producing it in a bite-sized form for $59. So just go ahead. If you look to improve your advertising, scan the QR code, and also, or go to jakubkosowski.com/creative advertising masterclass. I think it will be amazing. This is the second term that we are running. The first one was highly appreciated by the people who were there. And on top of that, we are now adding two bonuses. One is how to use advertising in creative process. And again, this is something what we talked about today. And again, there's a way how to use creativity and AI for our good, because what we see now, which just is all over social media, is everyone using the AI in the same way. Everyone is using it for the same trends, for the same memes, for the same stuff. And unfortunately, in that case, our brand is being lost. But there are ways, there are frameworks, and there's approaches how to use AI in the creative process. There is a way how to use it to really expand your view on advertising. There's a way how to use it to expand your spectrum of ideas, to really improve on of your ideas. So again, AI gives you amazing opportunity, but you need to know how to use it to make it really effective, because otherwise you will just fall on the same average level as everyone. They sort of know how to use it, but unfortunately they just use it for the wrong stuff, and that's a lot of potential being lost in how you use AI. Then second bonus, as I said, there are a lot of really amazing frameworks and checklists and templates for, there are people who really like these kind of blueprints, and that's why we collected all of the lessons which we have, and there are specific frameworks for each of the concepts that we are talking. So, if you will be talking about campaign, there's a campaign checklist to make sure that all of the proper things are in the ad to make it as effective as possible. We will be talking about brand positioning framework, so how to position your brand, that you know exactly what you stand for, because it really makes a difference that you are standing for something very specific and you're not everything for everyone, because then you are for no one. Then there will be a copywriting framework, how to write better headlines, better copy that really persuades and sells what you're selling. There will be AI assisted creative workflow. So as I said before, we have ways and prompts to use for your creative workflow that will improve the way how you work on advertising, to really work on your customer research, to really work on your customer personas. So again, there's many things that you can do with AI to really improve your advertising and your creativity, but you just don't need to know how to do it. Then there's an ad concept blueprint. This is something that we prepared over the past years to really judge if an idea is good or not, because everyone has an idea, but how to choose those ones that can translate to something which will be meaningful in terms of advertising is something different, right? So it makes it's always easier to have a blueprint where you go through points and you really evaluate that certain points are matched in terms of really the potential effectiveness of that ad. Then, as I said, we will also jump into media, because media makes a difference. Because even if you will do a very creative advertising that might potentially reach your audience and make a difference, it only will reach those audiences if the proper media strategy will be in place, and that proper media will be used to reach your specific audience. And the last one is a brand assets checklist, and this is something which I love because we use it all the time. This is to really make sure that your advertising, when watched by your audience, very quickly tell them that this is me, this is my brand, and they can recognize you instantly. Because as we already know, there's many cases that people watch advertising, they might even enjoy it, but in the end, they are not able to recall if that was, which kind of brand was that, who was it, was it some insurance, was it something else? And that's the lost opportunity of sell, and that's the lost opportunity of building the salience when it comes to the purchasing decision. When your customer is in a purchasing decision, you want your brand to really come up to his brain instantly. And that's why you should really make sure that your advertising speaks your brand assets and really showcase them all the time, instantly. And that's why I always fight, when someone tells me, yeah, there's too much branding. I say, yes, there might be too much branding for you because you work for the brand and you see all the materials all the time. But for us, we know that brand should be really visible, and should be very clear who is it and what this ad stands for. So these are those bonuses which come with which are advertising challenge. So again, if you want to join, please go ahead, scan the QR code. I will also share the link in the chat or also in the email, so you can always join. As I said, this is the second term, so I invite you to take part in this second session, because again, this will take your advertising to the next level. And again, this is something that is needed in terms of what goes into advertising, how to make those decisions, and also then in the end, which is also important, how to really stand by your decisions, to really be able to justify your choices, because you know exactly why you made those choices. Because there's nothing worse than making a choice in advertising and then not being able to defend it because everything is on feeling or in intuition. Yes, sometimes it works, but in many cases, there are ways how to use advertising and how to use specific frameworks that we know that is more effective than something else. So I think this creative challenge is something that will give you all of that knowledge, and you can then reuse it for your business, for your ads. So again, scan now, join, and I hope to see you there. This is it for the first training session. Next week, we will dive deep into the current crisis in creativity, because today we talked about creativity in general, but next week we will really see and look at the data that tells us that creativity really is in crisis. And again, AI just doesn't help it. So there's a really big. On the other hand, there's a really big potential for brands and for individuals that will really embrace this creative spirit, because that will be the difference maker in terms of how you are becoming visible for your audiences. So stay tuned for that. I will send an invite. Thank you very much for joining today, and I speak to you all next week. Take care. Bye bye.